So, the announcement, right? It was supposed to be pretty simple. Just, standard entertainment news, maybe stir up some buzz for the 2026 Super Bowl halftime show.
Yeah, just another headliner reveal. But the second Bad Bunny's name was confirmed, boom, it just exploded.
Instantly became this huge flashpoint, a real center of a pretty deep national debate about culture, about politics.
There really was an immediate cultural collision. You had this massive global multicultural icon on one side.
And on the other, a very specific kind of nationalist idea of what American culture should be.
Exactly. And that friction just turned the Super Bowl stage into this symbolic battlefield, really about what it means to be American in the 21st century.
Welcome to Starscope Report. Join us as we uncover Hollywood drama, music industry shakeups, and viral influencer scandals.
From red carpet surprises to social media controversies, we dive deep into the stories behind the fame.
Today, we're really digging into how this Puerto Rican superstar, Bad Bunny Benito Antonio Martinez Ocasio, somehow became the accidental epicenter of America's culture war, just by getting picked for the halftime show.
Yeah, our mission here is to kind of unpack those specific friction points. We're talking language, citizenship, cultural representation.
And that really fundamental question, who gets to define what's American? Who owns the biggest cultural stages we have?
Okay, so let's get into it. We kind of have to start with just how huge his rise was, right? Because the sources all show he basically ignored the old rules to get there.
It's staggering. The speed, the scale. We're talking about a guy from a working class background, Vega Baja, Puerto Rico, went from packing groceries
To being Spotify's most streamed artist.
globally.
For 3 straight years.
But-
2020, 2021, 2022. It's wild.
But doing that without assimilating, without switching to English.
Yeah.
It's got to be risky in the music biz, right? Did the sources mention, pushback from the industry?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the traditional playbook was super clear. You want massive U.S. success, mainstream success. You sing in English, period.
Yeah, you just didn't.
Nope. Completely rejected it. His album, El Último Tour del Mundo, back in 2020, first all-Spanish album ever to debut at #1 on the Billboard 200.
Wow.
That signals a massive shift. It basically says Latin culture isn't some niche waiting to be absorbed. It's a global force on its own terms.
And that refusal, just sticking to Spanish, that's powerful. Plus, his music itself, it's so deeply tied to cultural history, isn't it?
Totally. He blends the modern stuff, Latin trap, reggaeton, with traditional Puerto Rican sounds, salsa, bomba, plena. Some people even call his work like a living archive of the island's identity.
You mentioned bomba.
Rita.
The sources point out the history there, right?
Specifically, yeah. He deliberately uses things like the bomba beat. And historically, that beat came from enslaved people in Puerto Rico. It was a form of resistance.
So weaving that into global pop hits.
It's like this joyful activism. He's making his art a celebration, but also a challenge to, cultural erasure.
And then there's his whole persona beyond the music.
Yeah.
The sources really emphasize this as foundational to why he became such a political target.
Right. He just completely flips traditional machismo on its head. The fashion choices are very visible skirts, painted nails.
Pink florals, short shorts. Things that deliberately challenge those rigid gender norms.
And it's not just for shock value, It seems really intentional. Inherently progressive statements, often showing solidarity.
Like the Upureo Sola video, where he's in full drag.
Exactly. Or maybe even more powerfully, when he was on The Tonight Show and wore that shirt honoring Alexa Negron Luciano.
She was a murdered transgender woman in Puerto Rico.
Yeah, and the shirt said, "They killed Alexa, not a man in a skirt." That kind of progressive stance, it just gave immediate ammo to conservative critics who were maybe already looking for a symbol to attack.
But Bad Bunny's identity was only half the story. The real friction started when he crossed the line from cultural symbol to political activist.
And that's not even the wildest part. That shift really kicks into high gear after a specific event.
Hurricane Maria, right? 2017.
Yeah, if you connect the dots in the sources, his political awakening seems directly linked to how the federal government handled Maria.
The devastation was immense. Estimated 2,975 deaths. And the response was widely seen as, slow and inadequate.
That delayed, inadequate federal response is cited again and again in the materials as a real pivot point for him.
And he wasn't quiet about it. He used his platform. That T-shirt he wore on U.S. national TV.
The one asking, ¿Eres tuitero o presidente?
Are you a tweeter or president? Directly calling out the administration's focus while Puerto Rico was in crisis.
And there's a really key nuance here, I think. As a U.S. citizen from Puerto Rico, he can't vote for president.
Right.
So his criticism isn't just policy disagreement. It becomes this act of, like, anti-colonial resistance, challenging the whole power structure over his home.
And that activism didn't stop. It continued, focusing on economic stuff, too. He's been really vocal against what he calls gentrification and modern colonization.
Specifically targeting those tax laws, like Act 60.
For people listening who might not know Act 60,
Yeah.
how quickly did that impact things for regular Puerto Ricans? What did the sources say?
Well, the sources suggest the impact was pretty immediate. Act 60 basically gives huge tax breaks to wealthy outsiders moving to the island.
Which critics say just drives up costs like crazy for locals.
Yeah.
Housing, everything.
Exactly. He sees it as modern colonization. And he's taken a really bold stance beyond that, too, openly backing the Puerto Rican Independence Party, the PIP.
Wow. Openly supporting independence. That's a strong position.
Then you hear it in his music, too, that lyric from Lo que le pasó a Hawaii. It's pretty provocative. He warns, I don't want them to do with you what happened to Hawaii.
Referencing the cultural erasure after statehood. So he's positioning his art as this defense mechanism.
A defense against cultural and economic displacement, yeah.
Then came that really crucial decision about touring. Or rather, not touring.
Right. He publicly said he wouldn't tour his latest album on the U.S. mainland. And the reason he gave...
Fear of ICE targeting his fans at shows. He said it bluntly. Thing ICE could be outside my concert.
That was a pivotal moment of solidarity because he was essentially linking his fans, many of whom are Puerto Rican, so U.S. citizens, with the broader, undocumented Latino community.
It really cemented him as this figurehead for, well, the entire Latino community, feeling political pressure at that time.
And if you're finding these insights valuable, definitely hit that subscribe button. Because, as you can imagine, that act of solidarity, it immediately set off a huge coordinated political backlash.
Right when the Super Bowl news hit, the first reaction from some high-profile conservative, just dismiss him.
Yeah, that quote from Donald Trump on Newsmax. I never heard of him. I don't know who he is. I think it's absolutely ridiculous.
The sources kind of frame that as a tactic, right? Signal to the base that he's irrelevant, diminish his influence.
But others went way further, started talking about weaponizing state power.
That comment from Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem was sharp, warning that ICE agents will be all over the Super Bowl.
And saying only law-abiding Americans who love this country should attend.
Which is a crucial point the sources make. That criticism immediately blurred the lines. It conflated cultural dissent singing in Spanish with being a national security threat.
Exactly. They framed choosing a U.S. citizen who criticizes U.S. policy as somehow un-American, like using the Super Bowl stage for Spanish-language music undermine national unity or something.
And then Turning Point USA jumped in, announcing their rival All-American halftime show.
Suggesting Lee Greenwood. It perfectly set up the battle lines. Cultural homogeneity versus multiculturalism, all playing out on the same day.
But what's really fascinating is how Bad Bunny responded, or rather how the backlash kind of fizzled. Because he didn't fight back on their terms, did he?
Not at all. He used the stage where he dominates culture.
Which brings us to Saturday Night Live, October 2025. He's hosting.
And that opening monologue, it was masterful. He basically dismantled the attacks without even getting directly political.
He used mockery, right?
Right.
Showed that doctored montage of Fox News people who'd been slamming him, suddenly praising him.
Pure satire. He turned their own outrage back on them, showed how kind of manufactured it all felt.
Then he switched gears, spoke directly to the Latino community in Spanish, called his selection a victory for all the Latinos and Latinas.
And the mic drop moment, switching back to English to face his critics.
If you didn't understand what I just said, you have 4 months to learn.
Boom. Just brilliant. It completely flipped the power dynamic, didn't it?
Totally reversed it. The burden of assimilation, this idea that he had to speak English to be accepted, he threw it right back at them. You learn my language?
He demanded they meet him on his cultural turf. And basically won the exchange right there.
So the big unintended consequence of all that political heat, it just made the performance even bigger.
Massive amplification. The attacks turned it from just entertainment into this huge political and cultural moment.
The sources mention ESPN's Mina Kimes calling his presence profoundly important.
Yeah, showing Latino communities under fire that they're still represented and they still have some power. The whole narrative shifted. It wasn't controversial choice anymore. It was historic representation.
And you know it's bigger than pop when Princeton University creates a whole course about him.
Right. Thinking Bad Bunny, cultural politics, race, language, and empire, that confirms his significance way beyond music charts.
So when you pull back, the final synthesis is pretty clear, isn't it? That whole Super Bowl showdown just exposed these two clashing visions for America.
Completely irreconcilable visions. One is multicultural, multilingual, reflecting how the country actually looks now.
And the other is nationalist, rooted in this exclusionary idea demanding everyone fit one mold, linguistically, culturally.
And Bad Bunny's cultural power, just by being himself performing on his own terms, forced that whole conversation about citizenship, colonialism, cultural respect right into the mainstream spotlight.
It really shows that right now, in this super polarized time, a pop song, a fashion choice, a halftime show,
They can become these massive points of conflict, battlegrounds for the soul of the nation almost.
it forces us to confront these deep tensions about what American identity even means anymore.
And that really is the heart of this deep dive.
You've been listening to Starscope Report, where Jordan and Jamie uncover the stories shaping Hollywood, music, and pop culture. Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that keep the stars shining.